Hi everyone. You may or may not recognize us from our Instagram page. If you do not recognize us from our Instagram page, go follow us on Instagram. We are Fees in a Library. I am Bree.
And I'm Lou, and this month we're doing The Girl in the Mirror by Rose Carlyle.
So, this book is a thriller novel. It is a debut author, and it's basically about these two twin sisters, Summer and Iris. They end up on a boat together, and Summer just ends up disappearing altogether. And Iris, having always kind of been jealous of Summer, having lived in her shadow, she kind of takes the opportunity to take over her life. She steps in as Summer, and she just kind of goes through this roller coaster of a thriller, and we will be talking about that today.
Yeah, so the very basic timeline, without giving out any real spoilers, is Iris is called to Thailand. Summer and Iris set sail. Summer tells Iris that she's pregnant. Summer goes missing. Iris makes herself into Summer. Iris gets pregnant, and then one of their stepsisters, is also pregnant.
Real quick, before we get started and delving into it, I do want to give a quick trigger warning. Because there are going to be scenes in this book that do have some graphic sexual content. It is very descriptive, and while no rape actually occurs, there is kind of like a kink scene involving some BDSM, kind of rough kind of sex, and it is described as sexy rape. And so just no rape occurs, but just be warned because we understand that could still be triggering to some people. So putting that out there.
Yes. So Iris is called to Thailand by Summer because Summer's stepson, Tarkin, is having to have a late circumcision. He's about 2 years old, and he's getting it because it's all infected and all that. So when Iris goes there, she expects to be sailing the Bathsheba, which is her family's yacht, with Adam, Summer's husband, and Tarkin's dad. But for whatever reason, the Thailand doctors want Adam to stay since he's the blood relative of Tarkin and all of that. So Summer and Iris set sail, with Iris being the main captain since she knows how to sail better than Summer. And then Summer tells Iris that she's pregnant while they're sailing, which Iris is like kind of taken aback, like, why are you doing this when you're pregnant? Because it's a huge deal in their family that she's pregnant, because their dad, who is an amazing father, didn't split his will up 7 ways between all of his children and put it as whoever produces the first heir for the Carmichael legacy will get the full $100 million. And Iris has always tried to be the one to get that, but now that Summer is the one getting it, she's like, well, now I have to make sure that you're safe because you're pregnant and you can't sail as much, and trying not to like stress her out so she has like an early miscarriage or anything. During their sailing, Summer goes missing in the middle of the night. And Iris kind of sees how Summer goes missing because they have a security camera footage that their dad had installed from when they were younger, and he would like let Iris through them like sail during the night, even though so then he could still keep an eye on them. So Iris finds that footage, watches it, and sees that Summer is hit by a beam that they've been warned about since their childhood, that like never go up onto this area without a harness or a life jacket, and kind of like, and the beam is one where it's like, if you're hit by it, you're lucky if you die before you hit the water. So after that happens, Iris kind of gets frantic and searches for Summer for an extra week, which really like she runs out of fuel, she runs out of water, I think she runs out of food. So she gets into the port 12 days late. And in all the confusion, Adam mistakes her for Summer, and that's kind of how Iris steps into Summer's role. Like part of it was out of like necessity because they're in Seychelles, so she doesn't know what the laws are there since she grew up in Australia and is like a lawyer in New Zealand. So she doesn't really know the laws there, so she's like, yeah, I'll pretend to be Summer because, like, how would it look? This sister whose life is falling apart, like, who is divorcing her husband, who wasn't able to get pregnant, shows up to the port missing her sister who was pregnant, who had everything, and all of that. So she does it as a necessity, but did plan on telling Adam eventually.
Yeah, and a lot of it. So when Iris finds out that Summer goes missing, you know, she sees the footage for herself physically. It definitely sets in the most heavy part of the grieving process because when you start reading the book, you kind of get the idea that Iris is kind of bratty, overly jealous of her sister, you know, so you maybe don't like her quite as much at first. And when you read it, you kind of get the idea that Iris, while she's in this grieving process, she feels like people are going to be more heartbroken if they find out that Summer is the one that's missing because she feels like everyone loves her more. So she kind of uses that as justification for taking over Summer's life, on top of the fact that she would step into everything that she's wanted. And it's also important to note that Summer had a scar on her inner thigh, which Iris actually goes as far as to duplicate on her own thigh to make it more believable. And so that's kind of how the whole process happens of her actually becoming Summer when she steps off the boat.
Mm-hmm. And like we said, it was kind of out of necessity because when she cut herself, she used like paper towels or rags or something, and just instead of like throwing them overboard like she did a lot of other stuff, she just shoved it underneath like a table or something. So it would look even more suspicious if the police had found those bloody rags. So while in Seychelles, she convinces Adam to have dinner on the Bathsheba, which is truly like a weird choice. But during that, Iris stepping into her role more as Summer, because Summer is kind of like the modern housewife, where like she does the dishes, she does the wash, she does meals, she takes care of Tarkin, like all of that. She decides that, oh, she's gonna do the laundry.
Yeah, so first I'm gonna point out that Iris, as Summer, decides to have dinner on the boat because when she felt kind of outcasted in her family, the boat was kind of like her safe haven. So amidst all this chaos and kind of like grief that she's experiencing, she feels like she might be more comfortable on the boat. And so, like, they're on the boat, and she's trying to fulfill Summer's role, doing laundry. She realizes that there's something wrong with the washer and dryer. So she's bent over it, trying to figure out, like, what's going on. And when she's bent over the washing machine, this is the trigger warning for the sexy rape scene. Adam decides to start with this sexy rape thing. And they start having sex, and Iris is really confused at this point in time because when her and Summer had been talking about it, you know, Summer had always described Adam as a very gentle and sweet and romantic kind of lover. So this kind of kinky, like BDSM type thing, which is completely out of left field and out of character for him as far as her understanding was. So she was struggling a lot mentally, especially with the fact that the book makes a point to highlight the fact that Adam in most of these scenes is like a Minuteman, which makes it very kind of short and to the point, non-sentimental, and just a lack of emotion towards the whole act in general. So Iris is just very confused, and that's something that she kind of struggles with mentally and tries to figure out throughout the book a little bit.
Mm-hmm. So they get on a plane, they go back to Australia, and Iris like is continuously battling like in her mind like whether or not she should tell Adam. Like she does end up deciding not to. Like she decides, oh, I'm gonna like fully step into the role of Summer, get pregnant. She gets pregnant eventually, and is trying to play it off like she got pregnant when Summer said she had, like when Summer told her that she had gotten pregnant. So instead of being like 37 weeks, she's actually 33 weeks, and then she goes into labor. But before that, their oldest half sibling, Virginia, has come over because she is also pregnant, and a minor trigger warning is that she got pregnant through kind of an incest way, where it's not like gross incest, like it's still gross, but like not like they're like second cousins twice removed or something.
Yeah.
I don't remember the exact thing, but they're like distantly related, not like right related to each other. So she's there trying to get help because she is only 3 weeks behind Iris's pregnancy. So she's like, my mom is crazy. She's gonna induce me into labor because the will never specified that the heir had to live, just that it had to take a couple of breaths and have the Carmichael name. So Virginia, being the kind of person she is like, I want my baby to live. I want my baby to survive. I want it to have a good life. And then like a couple of days later, Iris goes into labor, and it's a whole thing. Like she's saying like, oh no, I'm too early. Like I shouldn't be in labor just yet. And while everyone else is like, no, it's fine. You're like 37 weeks. And then she has to kind of come clean and say, no, I had a miscarriage on the boat, but I didn't want to stress you guys out about it. So she's actually earlier than she is. And and then of course, like Annabeth, who's Iris's mom, is like, oh no, her water hasn't broken, so we should be able to get her to the hospital and make her not have the baby. And then her water breaks immediately because, that's how things work always. But Iris gets to the hospital, has her baby, and whatchamacallit, Adam like brings in the birth certificate for her to sign, so they can get the proceedings started right away of like getting the money and all of the assets. And Iris sees that on the paper Adam had wrote Rosebud as the name, and she's like, no, we're not going to name our kid that. Like, that was just a jokey thing that they had been calling their kid because Iris, to keep the lie going, went kind of all hippy-dippy and, like, chose some hippie doula to help her with a home birth. And then she never got any ultrasound. She never got any of that stuff. So they never knew like the gender of the kid until it was born, and she had a little girl, and she's like, no, I want to name our child Esther because it means like star or something, which is kind of a big deal for her because Iris and Summer both have like flower names, even though like Summer is Summer Rose, and Iris has always felt a second fiddle to Summer. So she wanted to change up the names, like not make it any more flower names. So Adam says he's going to go get a new piece of paper to fill out and leaves. And during this time, her brother, Ben, comes in and catches her in her lie. Because she's caught sniffing irises.
Yeah, because even though like irises don't have like a smell that they give off, Iris has always kind of felt displaced almost because Summer's name had so much thought put into it by their mom, because their mom originally didn't know that she was having twins, and so Summer Rose was specifically meant to be Summer's name, and she kind of just chose Iris's name because someone had brought them irises in the hospital room. So it's just kind of like, what's the closest thing that's around me that I could name my kid? It's very impersonal, but despite that, Iris wanted to find something special about it because she wanted that to be a good part of her identity. So that was something that she did, apparently, throughout her life. And if there was only one of the twins that would be smelling irises, and it most certainly wasn't Summer, so Ben kind of knew right away that it wasn't Summer.
Yeah, and Ben kind of feels betrayed because, like, he went through this whole grieving process of Iris, and then to find out she's still alive, like, how could, like, kind of, he feels betrayed, basically. And as he's leaving, he very pointedly tells her that he's going to send her some emails, And Iris is kind of freaking out, thinking that, oh my god, I just lost my like sibling, like the only person that really loves me. I am gonna get blackmailed into something. Like, what do I do now? So she's like frantically refreshing Summer's email a bunch, and then kind of puts two and two together that, oh, he's gonna send it to Iris's email. And since she can't remember the passcode to that email, she has to go back to their house. And during all of this, her uncle had come in to like bring her the paperwork. And she definitely tells him that her daughter's name is Esther. And during this also, Esther starts having trouble breathing because, you know, she's 33 weeks and not like it's just not an easy time for her to be out and about on her own kind of thing. So she ends up being taken to the neonatal unit where Iris goes with her and does some skin time with her, since that's very important for preemies. And during this, Adam comes in, is like kind of disappointed because he was going to bring the Bathsheba in to hold Summer's birthday and Iris's memorial and make it a huge surprise for her. And like, oh, Ben was going to be here, but he just had to cancel because of school. And it's like a few hours away still, and the crew is gone, like a bunch of stuff. So Iris is like, no, you should go and get the boat. Like, it's close enough that you can still make it and all of that. And as he leaves, he kisses her and calls her beautiful like the night sky.
And this was very Iris specific kind of compliment, because Summer was always bright and happy, very bubbly personality, where Iris was kind of more outcasted. And so she was kind of more happy being alone and like by herself. So the night sky was something that she kind of related to and was definitely an Iris specific compliment, which was weird for her to hear coming from him, because knowing that he didn't know who she really was. So that was kind of like, whoa, like what's happening?
Because he called Summer like the morning sky or something, like basically the exact opposite of the night sky. So while Adam's gone to go get the boat, she sneaks out of the hospital and goes to her house, where she finds Tarkin all alone up watching TV, which is a big thing because, like we said, Tarkin is like 2. So she carries him around, and like, keep in mind she had like just given birth like 24 hours earlier, so she's like very sore, very week, trying to see if Annabeth is there, or maybe Virginia, or like a babysitter or something. But she goes up and gets her phone from her suitcase, and logs in and like sees all of these emails from Ben, and they're like, at first they're like the therapy kind of emails where like a therapist would tell you to like send someone like the deceased person like an email like they're still there, and then there's one where it's like just so heartfelt that like Iris is like, oh my god, I didn't lose my brother, he still loves me, he's still like my biggest fan, like all of that kind of thing. Because Iris and Ben have always been super close, because he's like, because Ben is gay and like Iris is the only one that's really ever accepted him. Like his father didn't like him, like he's out at school trying to do that thing people do where like they're trying to get their parents' approval even though they're dead. Like he's going to business school so he can take over the business. So Iris is ecstatic that like she didn't just lose her only family member that really loved her.
Yeah, and this was also significant to her, especially because as a Summer, she hadn't gotten any indication from Ben that he might be grieving her as Iris being dead the way that she had hoped. So she kind of felt heartbroken, thinking that maybe they weren't as close as she thought, or he was like the rest of his family, where he wasn't quite as fond of her as she was of Summer. So the fact that she got to read these emails was very, very a heartfelt moment for her.
Yeah, and this is kind of where she starts like turning as a character, because she's like, she decides that I'm going to tell Adam the truth. He can choose to, we can either stay together or he can still be in Esther's life if she chooses to, and then she's also like, I actually want to be in Tarkin's life also, not just because he's Esther's half-sibling, but because she's actually grown fond of him.
Yeah.
And so...
I was just going to say, yeah, she's definitely grown as a character because she no longer cares about the money. She generally just wants her daughter to be happy, which is a huge thing for her considering how she's viewed that kind of situation in the past.
Yeah. Like, she was getting a divorce with Noah because they couldn't conceive, and like he cheated on her, and like just a whole bunch of stuff. But like, so her life is kind of falling apart, and she only ever wanted the baby because she could get the money. And like that's kind of why Noah was like there also, because she told him about it, and he was like, oh yeah, let's do this kind of thing. So when it never happened, he cheated on her. They're in the process of getting divorced and all of that. So, and then this is kind of where the first plot twist happens, where Iris goes into the bathroom where they have the special mirror.
Yeah, so the mirror, basically, they have one like this on the boat as well, and it's always been like a very huge thing for Iris. It's a very sentimental thing for her, because her and Summer were mirror twins, which basically means that Iris had all of her organs kind of on the wrong side of her body, and that always kind of made her feel misplaced and kind of like the wrong twin. And so, but this mirror is kind of formatted in a way where there are two panes of glass that meet in a corner. So when you're standing at it in a certain way, it kind of mirrors your reflection. So like when she's standing at the mirror in such a way, she can kind of pretend that she's the right twin for once and that everything is right where it's supposed to be. So there's a duplicate mirror like this in their bathroom. And so as she's going through this whole character development thing of finding out that her brother does love her like she had always hoped, of her realizing that she doesn't want the money, she wants to be there for her kid, and she's doing all this while kind of like looking in the mirror because it's such like a huge iconic thing for her. And then
I'm going to add on to that before I get to the spoiler. And another reason why it's like such a big thing is because like she's a mirror twin of Summer. She looks like Summer. They look pretty much identical. So whenever she's like in the corner and getting it in the reflection, she can pretend that she's not a mirror of Summer, that she is her own person, which obviously she is in general, but like she never felt that way. Yeah. So, but the huge spoiler, which was like kind of mind blowing, is that she sees a movement behind her. So she turns on all the lights, and there is Summer pointing a very tiny gun at her.
And the book specifies that the gun is tiny, so I don't know why, but I'm like, I mean, all right.
So, yeah, so kind of fast forwarding through this part, because it's a little quicker to do it that way, because it's all, like, Summer's just monologuing at her the plan. Like, they had, in the washer and dryer on the boat, they had hidden a dinghy and some fuel and a motor, so once they got to a specific spot in the ocean that was nearby some island, Summer could pretend to die and get on the dinghy and ride to that island, and then there was a yacht waiting for her there. So she's basically been waiting in the background for Iris to get pregnant and have the kid, because she's like a super sadistic person. Like, in Ben's email, he talks to Iris about how Summer always enjoyed the fact that, like, she would torment her and all of that. Like, when they were super young, like in elementary school, Summer started calling Iris different flower names, like Magnolia and Hydrangea, and, like, it wasn't until Ben was like, hey, knock it off, you're really upsetting her, did she stop? And then also, Summer is a horror fan, so like she would read horror books, and during like the most gruesome parts, she would read them aloud to Iris, which made her upset. And then also, their dad, like we said, is an amazing father, and when they were all like still fairly young, took them to like this bridge that they own, and like has a bunch of crocodiles at the bottom, and like threw a chicken in and made them all watch the crocodiles eat the chicken, which Summer later did to Tarkin, and also is where their destination is, where Summer's making Iris go to. And during this drive, like, it really, like, Iris is kind of putting everything together as Summer is also talking about it. And one thing that Iris realizes Summer never thought about was the fact that Iris is going to love her child. Because, like we said, Iris has never really wanted a kid. She only wanted a kid to get the money. So she doesn't think that Iris is going to want to, like, live with the kid. Because she's like, yeah, Adam is going to bring the boat up here. It's going to have, 2 weeks rations of supplies. It's going to have some money. And you're going to leave and never return. And so Iris is kind of trying to play with it, and then Summer is like, Summer tells her that one of the things that she made Adam promise while this was happening was that he would never kiss her. And we know that Adam kisses her at least 3 times. That is written about in the book. And Iris is like, well, he just kissed me a few hours ago. And Summer just assumes that she's trying to keep herself alive. So she's like, no, he didn't. He wouldn't have done that, like, kind of thing. And then, so when they get there, they get out of the car, and then Iris kind of realizes that Summer was never going to let her live, so they start wrestling around for the gun. And then, truly, this is the second plot twist. Truly go read this book before you get to this. This is not going to leave. That's upside down. This won't be leaving, like, the platform. So just go read the book. It's a pretty quick read, like, once you actually get into it, because the first bit is a little boring, but once you get into it, it's a quick read. Ben shows up and just sees his sisters wrestling, one of which is hanging more over the side of the bridge, and shoots the wrong twin. He shoots Summer and not Iris. The first indication that happens is in the next chapter, where the first sentence is, I am Iris, I am Iris, I am Iris. When I read that, I honestly thought that it was like Iris kind of coming to terms with, oh my gosh, I can be my own person now. It wasn't. It really wasn't. So then Summer, as Iris, questions Ben on how he knew that they would be there. And Ben says that he was talking to Noah, who is Iris's husband, and he was like, yeah, Iris can't have kids. It's like she has no uterus in all of this. And Ben is like, obviously that's a lie because Iris just had a kid.
Yeah.
So I don't remember exactly how he figured out that they would go to the bridge, but he knew that they would be there. So he shows up with a gun, shoots Iris, thinking it's Summer. And Summer disposes of the body, Summer disposes of the guns, and tells Ben to never speak about this again, like, we'll just pretend it never happened, like, kind of thing, like, one of the sisters is already dead, so it's fine. And so the next day, they're on the boat, doing the memorial and the birthday, and Summer picks up a bouquet of white irises and sniffs them. And then the line that, for me, cinched the fact that it was Summer and not Iris that was killed, or that lived, was crocodiles are digesting her deformed body, her twisted heart, her leaky breasts, and her womb. And the part of that line that really got it for me was her leaky breasts, because, you know, Iris had just given birth. And all of that. So,
yeah. I mean, if you thought that Summer was sadistic now, you realize that she had been planning this since she was like 14, if not before, because she obviously, now that we know that she doesn't have a uterus, because there was a scene in the book where we it is describing Summer and Iris as kids going through puberty. They are in a beauty pageant and they're modeling swimsuits, at which point Summer decides, hey, if I'm gonna be seen as having a kid in the future, then I have to make it believable that I do have a uterus. So she cuts herself to make it look like she's having a period, which was too much detail for someone that young to be thinking about and that far ahead. So that was very troubling in my mind. I'm like, what is wrong with you? Like, get help, please.
Yeah, so, like, and she also does that as another way to humiliate Iris because, Iris had taken Summer's spot in it as, like, first place, and Summer had taken Iris' spot as third place.
Unbeknownst to her, so she genuinely thought she won.
Yeah. So she genuinely thought she won until they, like, announced Summer Carmichael as the winner, and she's like, oh, my sister, like, and then she kind of plays it out, like, she doesn't think that it's a sadistic thing that she's doing. She thinks that Summer is being nice about it. Like, she's always, like, since she's always thought herself as second fiddle to Iris, she's always thought that, like, Summer is, like, just not necessarily realizing that she's upsetting Iris, like, with the name calling, with the other, like, anything else that she does. Like, Iris is always like, no, Summer is too nice to do this, which kind of leads us into, like, their dad's motto was nice is dumb, and Iris has always thought that Summer, like, kind of encapsulates that, since she's always kind of played herself off as, like, an airhead, as, like, the pretty blonde, as, like, that, like, basically, like, the nice is dumb. Like, she's always super nice and, like, kind of is an airhead. So, like, you kind of realize that, like, once you think about that, like, that Summer was really not nice and she really wasn't dumb. Like, it was kind of Iris that was the nice is dumb kind of thing. Because Iris was letting Summer get away with all of this. Iris was letting Summer do all of that. And just kind of thought that, not necessarily that she deserved it, but, like, kind of that she deserved it because she was the wrong twin. She was born with the wrong thing. She was born with all of that. So that's the whole book, and then it's kind of like our conspiracy theories that we're gonna get into now.
Yeah, I also kind of want to point out how meticulous Summer actually was, because she was banking on the fact that Iris would be so, like, all the torturing and the whole, like, nitpicking at her just to make her just enough upset to where she didn't believe that Summer was actually being mean, but just enough to get in her head. She was banking on all of that to make it to where Iris would be convinced to take over Summer's life. Like, she was banking on it, that she dug Iris just enough into that hole to want to take over her life. Mm-hmm. I'm like, that was a lot of what ifs that you were betting on there, Missy. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I think the biggest what if is, like, they didn't plan on Iris going to the house that night. So, like, truly, like, she probably would have let her leave with the boat, like, after the memorial service. Like, it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
If they actually had a plan for that, but...
Yeah, that would make sense, considering that Iris, for all this time, had never actually wanted the kid.
Mm-hmm. And she was banking on the fact that Summer didn't know that she actually wants her kid. But anyways, into our conspiracy theories. I don't think that Summer and Adam are getting away with it. Straight up. Like, I think there's too many factors, like the line, like the leaky breasts. Like, Summer doesn't have breast milk, so she can't, like, fake it. And, while she won't, like, be around a whole lot of people, like, she'll be around enough people that, like, it'll be weird. And then also, like, pregnant women, like, most pregnant women, I won't say that there aren't a few that don't, but, like, most pregnant women, when they give birth, they still have, like, a baby bump for, like, a while. So, and, like, I think that one will be, like, a little easier for Summer to play off, but also at the same time, because Iris kind of kept her body in shape while she was pregnant. Like, she was still very toned when she was pregnant. So I think that one will be a little easier to play off, but, like, the whole breast milk thing, I think, is where it's going to trip them up. And then also, like, Francine was crying out about DNA testing, which I honestly don't understand. But I was like thinking like it was something that we discussed, so I did a very basic research, and while it's for paternal testing, I don't see why it wouldn't work for maternal testing for twins also. But to see whether or not the baby is actually Summer's, is like you would have to go through each DNA strand instead of like the normal like 10,000 or whatever that they would normally go through. So like they could still get caught, and like
I'm gonna point out here because I'm not entirely sure. We pointed this out before. Francine is the stepmom, Virginia's mom. I'm just not quite sure if he pointed that out specifically. She was definitely really crazy because number one, she was screaming about the DNA testing because her daughter was obviously so close to giving birth. She wanted to cling on to like whatever hope that she could that the money might still be hers. But I also didn't think we specifically pointed out that she pinned her daughter out to that incest type of marriage on purpose so that she would get pregnant and forced her to get married at 16 and also that she could get the money.
Yeah, so like Francine is already crazy, so she may not have a leg to stand on, but at the same time, like she could have a leg to stand on, and it would be interesting to see like what would happen. But yeah, no, I don't think that they really get away with it because I think that they didn't plan for so many factors. Because like Ben could just say something or other like, oh no, like during this night, I shot and killed Iris, or I shot and killed Summer. Well, that would bring up a whole can of worms, so.
They should have killed Ben, not gonna lie. If they wanted to be really thorough and smart, like I know like it would have like led to like more loose ends because of Ben magically going missing, but like.
Well, they didn't plan on Ben being there. Like, they had planned on him like being there for the memorial service, but they didn't necessarily plan on him like catching Iris in her lie. So
yeah, I know. Like it would have been like I just feel like if anything is gonna trip them up, if anything is gonna call him out, it's gonna be him.
But he also lives in New York right now because he's going to school and stuff. So like, they probably still have a couple of years before they have to like think about that.
Yeah.
Truly. And then another, like, okay, so, and then the biggest plot hole that I could find, like, and there are, like, basically no plot holes in this book, but the only plot hole I could find is, okay, so Ridge, who is their father, knows that Summer doesn't have a uterus. Summer knows that she doesn't have a uterus. How does Annabeth, their mother, not know that Summer doesn't have a uterus? Like, there's no like throwaway line that like, oh, she didn't look at the medical records or something, because like when because I'm guessing that like they did like ultrasounds like immediately or x-rays or whatever after they were born to see where their organs are, and like it would have been something that like the doctors would probably just say like, oh yeah, well, this one doesn't have a uterus or something. Like they would have, like, I think Annabeth would have known that fact, which is kind of like my biggest plot hole of the whole book, because it's like, why doesn't Annabeth know that Summer doesn't have a uterus? Like,
yeah, it's definitely curious. But, something else that we were both kind of frustrated with was that we didn't know a whole lot about who Adam was as a person and his character, because it was very hard to discern like how much of the manipulation and his part of the scheme was because of him as a person or how much of it was influenced by Summer. Mm-hmm. And now knowing what the whole plan was and him knowing that he was with Iris that whole time, it makes more sense now why the BDSM kind of sexy rape thing wasn't taken into action, because he saw it as his mission of, I need to impregnate this woman, so that's just what I'm going to do. There doesn't need to be any kind of emotion in this. So that kind of made a little bit more sense, but we do have a kind of conspiracy theory about whether or not he actually may or may not have started to have feelings for Iris towards the end of that whole ordeal.
Yeah, because like we said, Summer had made Adam promise to not kiss Iris, but he does at least 3 times. And like during this whole thing, Iris is kind of training Adam to be a more gentle lover. So like we don't like, and then also him calling her like beautiful like the night sky. We don't know if that's like kind of the last jab at haha, we're gonna get away with this, or like truly like you like having feelings for her, whether it's like totally romantic or whatever like kind of thing.
Because obviously there would be a lot of emotion that he's feeling, because regardless of what he did, There was no doubt in our minds that he absolutely loved his kids, so he would do anything for his kids. So there might be a little bit of emotion given the fact that Iris gave him a kid. There might be some emotional attachment there. Or it might also be that maybe Summer's manipulation and kind of sadisticness kind of just started being a turnoff for him, and maybe he kind of started to like having a not so psychotic wife for a while, But
because yeah, because like when Iris was taking the role of Summer, like she was kind of turning Summer's life upside down. So this is another thing that I would kind of want to know, is like how does Summer kind of adjust to her life? Because Summer and Adam had planned on homeschooling Tarkin. They didn't plan on like sending him to like preschool or anything. So, but Iris sends Tarkin to preschool. And then also like kind of cuts off all contact with Summer's friends. And then also like instead of being this good homebodied wife, she kind of like she hires a maid to clean. She doesn't cook as much. Like they have a lot more takeout, and like she kind of turns Summer's life upside down. So that's like another thing that I'd want to kind of know. Like, sure, it's easy fixes, but at the same time, like Iris cut off all contact with Summer's friends, so it'd be interesting to see like how she explains all of that, and also the fact that like Summer, the way that Summer and Adam met was that she was a neonatal nurse and she was Tarkin's neonatal nurse, because Adam's first wife died in childbirth, so that's like how they met and they got together and all of that. So it's so like all of her friends are neonatal nurses or like doctors or whatever. So it'd be like I just want to see kind of how she plays it off, because Iris, like we said, goes in the exact opposite direction and like has this hippie doula and all of that. So like how does she explain away the fact that she went against her whole career and did all of that?
It'll be interesting to see how Summer tries to put her life back together, for sure.
Yeah. And not that we want a sequel or like a second book, because like I don't really want one unless it's like actually their plot getting unraveled, because I think that'd be like by like Francine or Virginia or someone like because I don't think like I said, I don't think that they'd get away with it. Like there's just too many loose ends that they left open.
Yeah.
So
there's definitely a huge debate about the ending. We definitely have very opposite opinions.
Yeah, I don't enjoy the ending just because it's like Summer, who's always been the good one and like the perfect twin, gets away with it all, and like I don't enjoy that fact, because like so we've discussed this like at length many times, and like we call it the wrapped in a box ending, and it is a wrapped in the box ending because like she gets away with it, she gets her family back, she gets her life back, but I just don't enjoy it because it's like there's too many, like I said, there's too many open ends. I think that something will tug at the wrapping and it'll all start crumbling down.
That's part of what makes it so like dun dun dun, like all suspicious and suspenseful. I like it because like obviously it was very heartbreaking because while maybe we didn't like Iris's character at first, we definitely liked her character at the end, and it was really hard to see her finally go through this big character turn just to end up dying. So that was kind of heart-wrenching, but I like to get my heart broken, so I definitely like a book that'll leave me like cradling in the corner, laughing back and forth, because it just left me so much to think about, and this book definitely accomplished that for me. So 10 out of 10 for me. Would recommend. Read it.
Yeah.
Before watching it, please.
Yeah, it's I hate it, I recommend it kind of book. Like it's a love-hate relationship for me. Like no offense to anyone who could take offense to this, but it's definitely just gonna sit on my shelf and never be read again.
I typically don't reread my books, so it might be the same for me, but it will be on my shelf in a stance of glory, so go read it.
Mm-hmm.
And unless there's anything else you want to add, I think that about wraps up for this book.
I think so. So next month we're going to be very cheesy and do a love story, Every Day by David Levithan. Which, if you don't know, is basically a story that a love story where A, who is kind of like a disembodied soul, I guess, would be the easiest way to explain it, as I haven't really gotten into the book yet. Jumps into a new person every day and has to like live that person's life for one day. And during one of these, he falls in love with a girl, and like kind of keeps going back to her and all of this. And it kind of is a story that tells you that like love comes from the heart. It doesn't have to do with your genitals. It doesn't have to do with like anything. It really comes from the heart in this one. So look out for that.
And it does come with the movie, so we'll be doing a contrast to the movie as well.
Mm-hmm. So there'll be 2 videos up next month, one for the book review and one for the compare and contrast. So I think that about does it.
Yeah, look forward to this. And like I said, follow us on Instagram. We will have the link to this in our bio, which hopefully you will have seen already. So look forward to seeing you guys there. Bye.